Pravritti 2022, Reshaping Chances to Choices. So before we move forward in the session, I'd like to the audience to know that for all your doubts and questions, you can type the questions in the Q&A box for all those people who are in the WebEx meeting. And for the YouTube people, they can type the questions in the chat box. So with this, I would like to introduce Professor Ashok Ganguly. He's the Deputy Director, Strategy and Planning at IIT Delhi, and he's also the Chairman of the OCS Committee. He's the founding director of the Institute of Nano Science and Technology in Mohali, and he has completed his PhD from IISc Bangalore. So, with more than 30 years of experience and many highly cited publications to his credit, Professor Ganguly has received many awards, such as the Nano India Award of DST in 2015, the Fellow of India Academy of Science, and the Fellow of the Royal Society of Chemistry, and many others. So, with this, I would like to ask Professor Ganguly to address the audience.
Thank you, Sanwar, and thanks to Anisha Madan for inviting me to say a few words at this annual Career Fest, which is organized by our Office of Career Services. So our Office of Career Services has come a long way from the earlier known name of T&P, right? Training and Placement, and has taken a really big steps ahead, as most of our students and alumni know. It's a wonderfully well done job by Anisha Madan and the student teams who work very hard to present to our students the best choices available in different organizations and to bring the best organizations onto campus. So this annual Career Fest is for our students to know what various companies are offering, and also to learn from leaders of various industries what goes on in different organizations, so that they can take you know their own choice on the area or the industry that they are going to embark upon, and which would be a stepping stone for their future. This would be the first job they land up with, and many times a good starting job really propels you towards a direction which may be your major direction in the future. So I'm very happy to see that nearly 100 organizations are participating, and I believe 70 are going to hire. I also very happy that it is not only open to IIT students, but it is also open to all, although the hiring can only be done for IIT students. So I'm sure, especially after the pandemic, all the students in the campus, great feeling for all of us at IIT Delhi that our students have a chance to interact directly. Although I think, Anisha ji, this is hybrid, right? I think
yeah, the
this
most of the
also
hiring events are in the virtual mode.
okay, right. But it's great to see kids on campus. The vibrancy has come back, and I hope, although there are cases increasing, we only pray that this is going to be mild, and all of us are, having vaccinated with boosters and all that. So I think we should, although maintain some distancing and whatever possible masks, so that we can help our elderly people and all not get into difficulties. That much I think we should try. But great event. I really am thankful. Mr. Vinit Rai has joined us, and he is our star speaker today. And all of you know him very well for his entrepreneurship and things. So, Mr. Vinit, welcome for this special event which the Office of Career Services is organizing. Your presence here and your words of wisdom will help our students soon to become our alumni to embark on their future. So with these words, I want to thank the Office of Career Services and all the students once again to bring to fruition this Pravritti 2022, the Career Fest of IIT Delhi. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir, for addressing us. So for this, I would like to introduce you all to the keynote speaker of the session, Mr. Vineet Rai, who is the founder of Aavishkaar Group and chairs its Group Executive Council. So Aavishkaar Group is an impact investment platform impacting millions of people in Asia and Africa using an entrepreneurship-based development approach. The group's ecosystem includes Avishkar Capital, Arohan, Ashok Finance, Intelcap, and Sankalp, about which Mr. Vineet will tell you all about. So the Avishkar Group manages assets in excess of more than 1.2 billion US dollars, and it serves the needs of entrepreneurs from debt of 150 US dollars to equity of 15 million US dollars, while aligning to the group of 13 out of the 17 sustainable development goals. So he's an ex-Ashoka Fellow and an honorary member of the ex-LRI Alumni Association. He recently featured on the cover of the Forbes India January 2018 edition. And in 2021 December, he was awarded and recognized for championing financial inclusion at the 13 Inclusive Finance India Awards. So with this, I would like to ask Mr. Vineet Rai to address the audience and tell us about your passions, which also include driving and moving onto the road, as you have mentioned. So over to you, Vineet, sir.
Thank you, Sanwal. Yet not knighted, so still Vineet. Whenever I'll be knighted, I'll let you know. But Professor Ganguly, thank you so much for having me here. Anisha, to everybody who's listening in, Anisha and I go back quite some time. She's actually a classmate of my wife, but importantly, I was a batch senior from the same institute. And, she was saying that she wants me to talk about careers to the students of IIT Delhi. And I was telling her that probably I'm the worst role model for to talk about careers because I never followed the classical path. But then she insisted that I have something to offer. So I started looking at what is it that I have to offer. And I went back to some of the achievements we have had. And these achievements actually stand on the side of what probably may not be very exciting to you. So, for example, we have helped roughly 10 million women actually be part of financial inclusion. 4.7 million farmers, we have been able to help them increase their income significantly. Roughly 1 lakh ton of waste we have recycled. 533,000 jobs and livelihoods we have created, and more than 1.5 metric ton of carbon we have sequestered. Now, this is what we have done. I know none of these are exciting in terms of the salary that you will get, the valuation that you will receive, but that's what has been my journey. And so before I jump into telling you about what careers are meant for, I thought, let me take you through my own career. And I have had a checkered history. I come from a classical middle class family, and most of you, while understand middle class, but the middle class of the time that I was passing out was slightly different. My father was a government servant, and the only ambition at that point of time a parent had was the son will either become an engineer or a doctor. If you are neither an engineer nor a doctor, then you are doomed to live a life of penury. And for some strange and funny reason, I chose very early neither to be an engineer nor to a doctor. So in class 9th itself, I decided I will never appear for an engineering exam, and I will never try to appear for a medical exam, even though I was a science student. Now, that sent a shiver down not my parents' spine, but my parents' friends' spine. Across the board, everybody said, "Saab ka ladka is not going to do anything worthwhile in his life." And at least every weekend, we would have droves of families and relatives coming and trying to convince me that the only way to salvation is an engineering degree or a doctorate, a medical degree. Nothing else will help. I had set my mind by that time to join army. And I was very clear, come what may, I will be part of Indian Army. For some strange reason, Indian Army also had made up its mind not to hire me. So I went for my service selection board interview for NDA. Then I tried what you call CDS, Combined Defense Services, and I tried for all the wings, Army, Air Force, Navy. And interestingly, all the three decided not to have me because the best of my efforts, I could not convince them that I carried officer-like qualities. And so without much option and without much hope, I became a graduate in physics, chemistry, and maths, which essentially means no hope for future. The world was also conspiring against me, and I graduated in 1991, a year which is fairly famous in India's history as the year when we mortgaged our gold to save our balance of, to save our ratings and actually probably our bankruptcy as well. Needless to say, there were no jobs. And so when I passed out in 1991 and I was loitering around in the streets of Jodhpur on my bicycle, a friend's father saw me and basically brought to me a draft, which he said was to pay for a fee to fill a form for an institute called Indian Institute of Forest Management. Now, this is a time when, for a person who was obsessed with army, I had actually never thought about a management education. And the only recollection I could make of the word cat was connecting it to a feline creature called Billy. So when I was brought to this document, and this was an institute called Indian Institute of Forest Management, it was doing its fifth course, essentially recruiting for its fifth course. It was not connected to combined admission test at that point of time. And the only good thing was it was offering a scholarship. So given my uncle's insistence, I filled the form and I appeared for the exam. And then when I went for the interview, I fell in love with the building. And I said, if these guys offer me a job, I'll actually surely join, not because I want to study, but the building was beautiful. Anisha would agree with me that the building continues to remain beautiful even after many years. So that's how I went to IFM. 2 years sailed past. The scholarship kept me happy and wise. Education was never my priority. I graduated and got a job in a company called Balarpur Industries, also known as Avanta Group now. It was a paper industry. They put me in a remote part of Orissa in a forest, and I got the second wind of my life, chasing elephant and bear inside the forest. It was closest I could get to the adventure that Army would have offered me. 2.5 years down the line, I got married, and I told my wife I live like a king and I'm having a great life. But when she landed up, she sheepishly told me that my king size house was not worthy for human inhabitation. And after 6 months, she gave me an ultimatum to either find a new job or a new wife. So left with very limited choice, I started scurrying around for a job. And incredibly, I discovered that if you lived in 3 years in a forest, nobody wanted to hire you. Nobody who was an inhabitant of a city. And so with great difficulty, IIM Ahmedabad, which happens to be a reasonably prestigious institute, I was sending my job application to a car salesman, to everything and anything. And IIM Ahmedabad somehow was looking for a person who worked for a corporate but lived in a forest. And I think I was the only Indian amongst the billion that qualified. We were still a billion, so a little less than a billion. So I landed up in IIM Ahmedabad, of course, with no salary or almost nil salary, to do some research. 6 months in the research, sitting in front of a computer, typing respectable papers. I realized my life has come to an end. And I went to the professor I was working with and I told him, I cannot continue to do this and I want to get out. Government of Gujarat, and this is 1997, Government of Gujarat was actually at that point of time contemplating setting up an incubator. You heard it right, 1997, nobody in the world actually, nobody in India actually was talking or thinking about an incubator, but Government of Gujarat was. And so the professor I was working with had said that, why don't you apply for this job? I thought manager looked like a great position because I was still just 3.5 years old in my professional life. And I applied for the post of manager. The interview was being conducted by the advisor to the chief minister and some faculties of IIM Ahmedabad. I was the last guy in the interview line. And it seems to me that they were asking a question as to what is incubation? And all the 29 people before me who had applied for this position of CEO and general manager had never heard about an incubation that has linked with businesses. And so when I was the last guy and I was asked this question, because the report on the subject was written by IIM Ahmedabad, I was able to regale my audience with stories about incubators, of space to tech to whatnot. And so at the end of it, the advisor to the chief minister asked me, CEO banoge? And that's why at 26 years, few months, I was probably CEO of India's first incubator in Gujarat. My job was to convert ideas of farmers into business. The chief minister, Keshubai Patel, was very passionate. He was a farmer himself, and he thought they could do actually something very interesting with. So I tried to convert these ideas into businesses, worked for 4 years, was reasonably successful to launch 7 or 8 ideas into businesses. The largest one reached 2 crores in turnover. And if you go back to 2000, 2001, 2 crore was a very, very large sum. My learning after 3.5 years of incubation was that every entrepreneur I tried to help was actually looking for risk capital. Every Indian carried a dozen ideas in their back pocket. And so the ideas were important, but lack of capital to bring about change was far more important. And so once I realized that capital and talent, remember that I was trying to create businesses in rural India. So, and the normal movement of capital and talent is from rural to urban to metropolitan to international shores. And I was trying to take water up the hill, trying to take both talent and capital to rural India. Amazingly, it was very difficult for me to explain this to my board. And so as a 29-year-old in 2000, 2001, I made a presentation to my board telling them, listen, guys, what we require is risk capital. And that without risk capital, I won't be able to continue to make a significant impact or significant change in rural India. I was told to continue what I was doing. And I was a little pissed off, and I actually quit the job. I quit the job overnight. I still remember the date. It was 1st March 2001. And then discovered that my life saving was 5,000 rupees. Very few people actually used to get paid well at that time. Not sure by the government you will get paid very well. So with this 5,000 rupees, I actually waded into launching a fund called Aavishkaar. And then my wife, I convinced her to give me 1 lakh rupee, which my father-in-law had gifted to her. And that 1 lakh rupee, I started a company called IntelliCap or Intellectual Capital. My idea was that I will take, Aavishkaar will be the rural capital risk taker for rural India, while IntelliCap will try to attract the best talent from across the world. As any of you would understand, it was very, very difficult for me to actually go forward from there. 5,000 rupees, no experience, have no understanding of finance. The only thing I knew about how elephants and bear run. So raising capital was difficult, attracting talent was equally difficult. Fast forward today, Aavishkaar, as you heard, we manage roughly $1.2 billion. We have 7,000 employees directly employed, and we have actually created a significant impact in the process. So the question was, how did I manage to do it? And I think there are 3-4 learnings from those who are seeking to build careers, especially if you want to build careers in entrepreneurship. India has enormous number of problems, and every problem is a $1 billion opportunity. So if you really want to actually build and scale, do not focus on the $1 billion as much as you should focus on the challenges. If you identify the right challenge, your ability to actually deliver a significant impact at the same time while delivering a significant return for yourself is potentially possible. I know most of you guys are from IIT Delhi, and IIT Delhi is rated very highly. And so I assume that you guys probably are the cream of the nation. But I think this nation would benefit hugely if, while you try to becoming a unicorn, look at the idea of impactful unicorn. An impactful unicorn actually is where you try to create a more equitable India. Don't focus just on your salary or your profits, but distribute the profits as you build them up. And if you are able to do that, you will be able to create not only significant returns for yourself, but more than money, you would be able to create far bigger joy, not just for yourself, but millions of others. And this requires intellectual capability of the kind that you have, because social problems are far more complex than business problems. And they have many different facets that are very difficult to actually address to. So if you're not able to actually, and so if you have great interest in technology, you have in your hands a tool that can solve very insolvable problems. If you have great understanding of finance, you will be able to direct capital. And just to give you an idea, if you want to make the world a very happy place, that means no poverty, no hunger, no inequity, then based on a report that we did in 2018, the world requires to just invest $2.5 trillion a year for next 12 years to make the world without hunger, without poverty, without inequity. And this 2.5 trillion, if you try to calculate, while it's equivalent to pretty much close to India's entire GDP, but in the global terms of capital, it is very inconsequential. Just so that you understand, the global pool of capital was 300 trillion, close to 300 trillion before COVID. Today, it stands close to 400 trillion. So effectively, what we are saying is if the world is willing to sacrifice 1% of its growth, just 1% of its growth from the capital that it has, you can actually have a world that Homo sapiens have never seen since the time they started walking straight. And that each one of you with capabilities and intellectual ability that you have the ability to contribute to that change just by sheer capability, intellectual imagination that you have, and the tools and skills that you have brought in. More so, given that I was told that IIT Delhi is actually a serious hotbed of startup entrepreneurship. Having told you about my own story, I'll very quickly touch upon story of 3 people. One who actually comes from an IIT, Pankaj Khandelwal, IIT Kanpur, Computer Sciences, BTech Computer Sciences. I met him in 2009, invested 5 crore in him. He wanted to actually build, and this was probably one of the first agri-techs in India. He had hit upon this idea that Indian farmer does not look at new opportunities, and that India exports no pomegranates. Pomegranate is anar, if you don't know. But so in 2009, India did not export a single pomegranate. And Pankaj took it upon himself to build a company that will help Indian farmers produce pomegranates and then help them export it. I'm extremely pleased to say that while it was not as technologically intensive as an IITian, especially a computer engineer, should do, but Pankaj and his team has helped India export 1,000 crores worth of pomegranates last year. And Pankaj's own company called INI Farms is considered to be India's largest exporter of banana, India's largest exporter of pomegranates. It has also actually just announced its merger with Agrostar, which is another investee company of mine, and is probably going to be first unicorn in agri-tech space. So smart people like you can actually change the reality of India. We talked about farmer challenges. We talk about waste, water, sanitation. Everything can be changed. The second entrepreneur I want to talk about is a gentleman called Sandeep Patel, coming from a very average background in Ahmedabad. Sandeep had a very severe dislike towards waste that he used to see around himself. And he wanted to build a company that would clean India while being profitable. And interestingly, he didn't want to make profits from the government. Generally, India's waste management is all about moving the waste from one place to another. Since you guys are from Delhi, if you walk to Ghazipur, you will see a huge mountain of waste being piled up. And Sandeep wanted to change that. Nepra, the company that he has built up, which Aavishkaar is a fairly large shareholder now, actually is closing on. And when I met him, he was doing a few 100 kgs of waste recycling. Today is close to 1,000 tons of waste recycling, roughly delivering a 400 crore revenue with a profit of around 10 to 12% net profit in that range. Not only is he, and India is actually, so he's just 1,000 tons. This could actually be India's first waste unicorn. the potential and scale that Sandeep sees in the business that he's doing, cleaning India while being profitable and at the same time providing an opportunity to the poorest of the poor rack pickers to move away from a very uncertain lifestyle. And final example, I'll take you to a state called Bihar. Some of you probably come from Bihar. A gentleman called Kishore from Samastipur in Bihar met me and wanted to actually convert grains into a sort of a Bitcoin. He wanted to essentially digitize grain and make it both fungible and tradable. The company that Kishore built up took some time, 7 years now, is growing at 400% year on year and is actually reaching, this year it'll cross 150 crore in revenue just from one state, Bihar. Imagine the potential of India and what he will be able to achieve. Long, if each one of you are looking to build a career that would actually be both profitable and impactful, then do look beyond the obvious. And one of the most important thing there to do is if you can solve or pick up one of the challenges that you see around you and try to build a solution to bring about a change, capital will chase you and awards and accolades and recognition will come. In addition to you becoming fairly rich, and you will contribute to removing the misery in the life of millions of people. So I'll stop here. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Thank you so much, sir, for your kind words. So Rishita Agarwal will take forward the Q&A session, and the questions which have come in from the audience, she'll ask you one by one. So over to you, Rishita.
Okay, so I think I'll keep reminding you, yet not knighted, so sir doesn't sit very well with me. But it does not matter if the today's generation is fascinated by creating. So I understand dating platform is far more exciting than actually building a waste related startup. But I don't think so. We are looking for a million entrepreneurs. To change India, you require a few hundred. Remember that in 2015, we had only one unicorn. And in 2022, you actually probably are generating more unicorns than you ever thought you will. So we don't really need millions of people to change India as well. And to deliver an impactful unicorn, we require only a few role models to succeed. I'll also actually tell you that IIT Delhi has done a tremendous job in bringing some role models. So I don't know if any of you know or heard about Vijay Mahajan, a distinguished alumnus of IIT Delhi. He is a single man who has inspired hundreds of people like me to play a role in the social impact space. He is an IIT Delhi distinguished alumnus. Similarly, Atriya Rai Pralu is also an IIT Delhi alumnus who actually joined me in my journey, in my quest in 2007, and has consistently shouldered me for the last 15 years. So we require only a few of you who should get fascinated by the problem that surrounds us. And let me assure you that the quantum of capital that is going to chase you is going to far outpace the quantum of capital that is chasing those who are trying to build just unicorns. Sustainable Development Goals, the targets are 2030. This is actually a document signed by 193 countries of the world. The pools of capital, which is essentially coming from pension funds, etc., which is largely government controlled, would be pushed into impact investing. So you will have a higher and a larger chance of actually being successful and large if you're trying to solve an impactful problem. And let me also convince you that even Elon Musk is trying to make himself relevant to the problems of today, sir.
Since we were talking of the SDGs, I was reading that you are also in talks with the government to start an ESG stock market platform. So maybe that would be.
Yeah, Anisha, that's actually a social stock exchange. It's I was on the committee. It's actually government's idea, not mine. I was on the committee of Securities and Exchange Board of India to give it shape. I think the social stock exchange will come into play probably hopefully in next 12 months, and would be a new venue, but it is probably going to be far more beneficial for the not-for-profit institutions. Will have some relevance for the for-profit institutions as well. But there's going to be significant and very large amount of private capital through venture capital funds, through alternative investment vehicles, and through global funds of funds to actually provide capital to those guys who can come up with a win-win solution, a solution that actually solves a social problem, but does it profitably.
So for these people who are looking for glory, that's one way, create the impact, and there is a route which is easier to follow than when you monetize it later. I think finally they all want to monetize it, right, at some stage.
Yeah, so monetization has to, so unlike if you carefully look around, the tech companies that have been creating are far more not for profit than the companies that I am talking about. Every company that I talked about is profitable or is nearing profit. Every unicorn you look about, very few unicorns have any semblance of being profitable ever. Tech investing is investing for dominance. You actually take a punt to build a company that will dominate the landscape like an Amazon does, or a Facebook does, or a Google do. India, unfortunately, has followed a slightly different pattern of building tech companies that are not necessarily seeking to be profitable or have very clearly understood how to be profitable. Apple, Google, etc., and Facebook are very, very, very profitable. And so those who are actually thinking that impact investing is about not making profits, let me tell you, this is hard work but profitable. India's tech and India's startup world is yet to come to terms with its own reality, which is whether you can really deliver profits.
Yeah, that's true. It's all valuation out there.
Yeah, so that's actually taking the rabbit out of your hat. I don't think so that creates any value. Of course, one can feel very proud about the valuation, but valuation is never a benchmark for value. Value comes from creating enduring and sustainable companies, and enduring and sustainable companies come in case you know how to make money. Not from your investor, but from your own business.
From the customer. So that's another learning for students, that valuation is good, but value is better. Any other questions, Rishita? Then there's a lot of pioneering work that you all are doing at Aavishkaar. The other one that I was reading about was about the carbon credit bank that you all may be thinking of.
Yeah,
Which
so
I suppose first of its kind in the world, if I'm right.
First in the world is always a disputable claim unless it is verified. So I'll be a little careful about it. But let me start by actually saying that I'm a forester by training, and I always wanted to see if whatever I have learned in finance, can I actually convert that to grow trees as well or conserve forest. Now, the challenge is if you grow forest, first it takes a long time, and then it is very, very challenging to monetize it. A question that everybody asks. While I was taking a lot of heart from the not-for-profit tech companies that were listing, but I wanted to actually find an answer to create reasonably strong returns in real terms by doing this. So finally, what we have done is we are launching a fund called Carbon First, and this would be probably unique in the sense that we will raise capital. We will invest this capital with the lowest income community from across India, and not just India, across Asia. And we will tell them that you grow trees and you keep the trees, you eat the fruits, you just preserve the tree. And we would like to speculate and take ownership of a significant chunk of carbon credits, the biomass that is being sequestered, and then trade it with the 15,000 global companies that have decided during COP26 to pledge for zero carbon footprints. And so essentially what you are talking about is you're bringing in hundreds of millions of dollars for low-income, poor people and letting them keep that money while generating a business out of something that is being created out of thin air. So it is pretty much close to what a lot of people thought is creating money out of thin air, but that's what we are trying to create. We're trying to create probably world's first fund that would entirely take its returns out of thin air.
I think there's another question that I'm seeing. Post-COVID, startups are mostly tech-based. So when we think about some idea which doesn't involve mostly tech, the motivation goes down, since I think all these kids are technology kids. So is it necessary to think in the tech direction? How can we motivate ourselves to think more in the non-tech direction?
Yeah, so I think this is I think tech is also the word tech is actually quite a wide word, but it has become being used in a very narrow sense when it comes to India. So if you actually get into a product, robotics, anything which actually is a product, let's say you're making a tractor of a different kind, or you're making a vehicle that doesn't require oil, or you're coming up with a replacement for ICE engine, or you're coming up with a new battery, everything is tech. The problem is product tech is different from service tech, SaaS is different, and software as a role. I think if there were easy ways to solve a problem of the world, then people would have solved it. Technology, what it does is it gives you unimaginable potential ways of solving very complex problems. And therefore, I would recommend not to ignore role of technology, because if you are going to solve a problem for 100 people in a country which has 1.4 billion people, your ability to deliver scale gets very questioned, and therefore your ability to then monetize or create revenue or deliver serious impact is all going to get questioned. While I'm personally not against small initiatives that deliver massive impact, but I genuinely believe that if you have a talent to build something which is scalable, then you will be seen in a different light than just creating very meaningful but small impact. It's an issue of talent and capability, and therefore the challenges, and specifically in countries like India, where nothing gets more celebratory recommendation than scale, to not ignore scale. And if you want to deliver scale, technology then becomes a very important thought process in that. So if you feel depressed looking at non-tech solutions, then I'll encourage you to get away from depression and continue to focus on technology. There's nothing wrong.
Now, the next question is more about, the practicality. How do you handle the pressure when you're starting out on your own, on an entrepreneurship journey? Like, you also went through a lot of pressure when you started out, $5,000 rupees in your pocket, that was it. And to reach where you are now.
Yeah, well, I think, so that's why I was trying to add in my last answer that technology is just a very small sliver of the solution for the future. Your ability, your mental toughness, your ability to look at society, your ability to create, attract talent, equally plays a very important role for you to become successful. Your moral standards, they play a very, very important role when you actually scale a business. You have been seeing a lot of disputes and a lot of governance issues that you are seeing emerging in startups in India. That's simply because we have a lot of people who are very talented, but with very weak moral grounding. And I think to young guys who are actually listening to me, I would tell you that when you are pushed to the corner, your ability to stand for morality gets tested the most. Therefore, entrepreneurship is not a great place for weak-hearted, those who are seeking security, and those who do not know how to handle when the buck stops at you. And I generally, while I know the world wants everybody to become an entrepreneur, let me tell you, entrepreneurship is not for everybody. So if you are choosing entrepreneurship, you must feel joy when the stress actually hits you. So if you don't get enjoyment out of stress, this is really not the best place for you to be in.
How have your priorities changed from when you started?
Well, quite significantly. When I started, I had three priorities. I had given myself the task that if I am able to take an auto rickshaw without thinking 30 times, whether I can afford it or not, I would have reached my area of richness. If I'm able to actually stay in a hotel without bothering my friends and my relatives to lend me their place to stay, then I have reached my level of richness. And if I can go to the hotel and without bothering towards the pricing side, can focus on the dishes, then I have reached my richness. So in reality, by 2006, 2007, I had reached my level of richness. After that, everything that I have gained is greed. But my priorities in terms of delivering impact was very focused on very small humanitarian efforts. I was actually very driven by the idea of convincing an individual entrepreneur to be taking a risk and be successful. And I wanted to be that person's agony aunt in some sense by being an investor and capital provider. Soon I realized that good people, I was a nice guy, working with other good people, are disastrous at delivering solutions. So I started first hardened myself up a little bit, and then I started looking for more hardened and slightly greedy folks. I realized that absolutely nice folks will actually never build a business, but a little bit of greed is critical and important. So balancing greed with a mission becomes a fairly fascinating but difficult mix that I started seeking for. Finally, I must tell you that for a very long period of time, I was not the biggest proponent of greed. But in last few years, I have started becoming a big proponent of greed. So that's how my own priorities have changed quite dramatically.
So, sir, like, I have a personal question. So, like, there are many questions, like, even Riaz asked this, like, there are many questions before we start a entrepreneurship journey or a startup journey. There are many questions like, which domain should I choose, whether my business will be successful or not. So, like, all those questions, should I have an answer for those questions before starting my journey, or should I like get those answers along my journey? Like, how should I go about it?
So I think the only question that you should answer is, will I enjoy if I'm actually going to be a, so I don't know if you know this, try to stand, try to, if you guys know swimming, just go put in a swimmer's mat in the swimming pool and try to stand on it and try to jump. That's exactly what entrepreneurship is. That's the feel you get. You're not on a firm foot. Even if you are young, you are very able, you will never feel very comfortable jumping up when you are actually standing on water. So till the time you are willing to experiment, till the time you are willing to jump while you are standing on a very, what you call uncomfortable or unfirm territory, you are pretty much ready to be an entrepreneur. To be an entrepreneur, I think the most important thing is to ask yourself, do you understand your limitations? And so first, very, very critical to understand your limitations, whatever they are. Are you a great finance guy? You're a tech guy? Can you think? Can you get along with people? Whatever they are, figure out your limitations. And then you have to excel within those limitations. You are not competing. One of the most important things about entrepreneurship is you are competing against yourself, nobody else. So the only person you should know very well is yourself. And within that, so not so much about your strengths, so much about your weaknesses is very important. So if you know your weaknesses, then look at your strengths and then try to excel to the best possible area. That's first step of entrepreneurship. And the second part of entrepreneurship is that whatever problem you are solving, be very clear about your problem statement. Invariably, I have people with great solutions without searching for a problem. And if you have a great solution, it doesn't solve a problem, it's not going to create any customer traction. So find a problem, even if you identify your customer, find their problem. Once you have defined that problem, and if you are capable enough to attract talent, so remember, it's not about you, it is about the management team that you attract. So people who are going to work with you. It's not about how smart you are, it is how smart you are in actually bringing more talented people around you. It's also not about how quickly you raise money, because raising money sometimes is actually a death pill. A lot of people raise money and feel happy and then actually shut down their businesses. So sometimes not raising money is actually a good thing, not as much as a bad thing. Not raising very large amounts of money is also actually a very good thing, because you will continue to be still in control of your destiny. So when you get very impressed by this guy has raised 100 million, this guy has raised $40 million, I don't think so there is any real value behind those very big statements. Even an idiot with $100 million will be successful. And if he or she is not successful, then they have not done a very good job of justifying the $100 million. The challenge is, can you become very successful with $500,000 or $100,000? And let me assure you, $100,000 or $500,000 in today's time and age of India is a very easy capital raise. So my suggestion is identify the customer you want to serve, identify the problem set for those customers, try to find out how your solution actually solves the problem, and then ask yourself how big is the problem, and therefore how big your solution can scale. And then it's about the team. And if you can find these 3-4 answers, you are pretty much ready with your business plan. And finally, don't make a business plan for the investor, make the business plan for yourself.
Ma'am, you're on mute.
Sorry. So I was saying there was one question, handling pressure when you start out. One is the financial pressure, which I hear and which I think you all try to help taking out the risk capital part of it, but the other pressures that come as well.
Yeah, so the other pressure in India, especially, you need to actually, so I think there are 3 things. One is transparency. A lot of entrepreneurs actually, once they raise money, actually buckle up and believe that they are the final Turram Khan this world has seen. Unfortunately, you are one of thousands and thousands of people who have raised capital. So when you actually raise capital, the pressure that will come to you is the right kind of guidance. So first, I have always believed young people are the ones who will change the world, because those who have got experience really know how difficult it is to change the world. So they will not even try. Because young guys do not know how difficult it is, they will. So if somebody asks me, Vineet, would you want to start Aavishkaar again? Today, I will say, no, man, why would I do that stupid thing of struggling for 20 years? So you have to be very young and inexperienced and should not know how difficult it is for you to really change the world. But that's how the world changes. But the moment you have decided to be that young person who will take the cudgels of changing the world, you should surround yourself with the wisdom. Because the wise person can only tell you what you should not do. Because they know by experience, by doing that, things will not change. What they do not know what you should do. So focus on what you should do and learn from the wisdom of others what you should not do. Once you can build this combination right, any kind of pressure you will be able to handle.
Yes, sir, definitely. Like whatever you spoken, like it was truly what we actually wanted and how the guidance should be. So before the end this session, I would like to ask Mrs. Anisha Madan. She has been here in OCS for more than 11 years, and like her career has spanned environmental consulting, education consulting, HR plus start consulting. She's a fellow of MDI Gurgaon in OBIHL area, and she's also a published author. So I'd like her to address the audience as well.
No, I just want to thank Vineet for all the insights, and I'm sure we've picked up a lot of new things that we did not know. One is that you can create impact while being creating profit for yourself, which is a big one. Think in those directions. Be innovative in your thinking, and money always follows. Right? That's a big takeaway from my side. From the institute, we'll be sending this to you as a token of appreciation. And again, thanks Dan for just accepting my invitation and taking out the time to do this for us. We really appreciate this. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Anisha. Very grateful to be invited. And I hope if I could actually influence even one of you to follow the path of Vijay Mahajan, who happens to be a distinguished alumni, I think IIT Delhi will serve the nation very well. Thank you so much.
Thank you for all your insights.
Thank you so much.